Everybody good? I'll give you 2 seconds.
No.
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to what I consider the first board meeting of the 1920 season, even though we did meet twice over the summer, so thank you all for being here. Notice is hereby given of the regular meeting of the Board of Education of the Town of Westfield in the County of Union, New Jersey, at 7:30 p.m. on the evening of Tuesday, August 27, 2019, in the boardroom of the Administration Building, 302 Elm Street, Westfield, New Jersey. The purpose of the meeting is to transact the regular business of the board and to transact any other business that comes properly before the board. This is to advise the general public and to instruct that it be recorded in the minutes that in compliance with Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, entitled the Open Public Meetings Act, the Westfield School Board on Thursday, August 22nd, 2019, caused to be posted at the office of the Board of Education located at 302 Elm Street, Westfield, New Jersey, and delivered to the Westfield Leader, the Star Ledger, the Westfield Library, Town Clerk of Westfield, Tap into Westfield, and Patch.com, a meeting notice setting forth the time, date, and meeting of this location. Dana, can we have a roll call?
Michael Beelan.
Here.
Kent Diamond.
Here.
Brendan Galligan.
Here.
Robert Garrison.
Here.
Brian Morrissey. Gretchen Olig.
Here.
Tara Porto.
Here.
Peggy Oster.
Here.
Amy Root.
Here.
Thank you. Michael, would you like to lead us in a flag?
Sure.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Announcements. Rob, do you have any announcements?
I do. There were drones in the hallway and robots in the classroom, marshmallow toasting in handmade solar ovens, and painstaking stop-motion animation at the Westfield Public School District STEM Camp, which was in its 7th year this summer and offered courses designed to promote awareness of careers that integrate the disciplines of science, technology, engineering, and math. Special thanks to Assistant Superintendent Paul Pinero, STEM Camp Director Sean Bonacera, Edison Computer Technology teacher Laura Pava,
Yes.
and the skilled Westfield educators who helped make this popular camp a huge success.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Tara.
these notices are becoming more animated, that's pretty good.
Doesn't say on there.
It doesn't say, I'm not sure.
What grades is that camp available for?
It's open for rising 3rd through 8th.
Great. Thank you. Tara.
The Westfield Public School District will welcome parents to back-to-school nights at each of our 10 schools from September 10th through October 3rd. Please check the calendar on each school's website for exact dates and times.
Thank you. Michael.
Thank you to all parents and guardians who have completed the required forms in the parent back-to-school packet on the Genesis Parent Portal. For those of you who have not yet had a chance to do so, please log into the Parent Portal on the district website no later than September 6th to complete the forms.
Thank you. Brendan.
Yes. 26 new staff members are joining the Westfield Public School District. They are attending a 2-day in-house orientation today and tomorrow as part of the New Staff Institute, a 2-year program designed to support first-time educators and those who are new to the district. Dr. Dolan and other members of the administrative team were on hand to welcome everyone this morning. A special thank you to Human Resources Specialist Barbara Ball, her assistant Carla Wolf, and the leadership team comprised of the seasoned Westfield educators who run the comprehensive NSI program.
Thank you. Kent.
Yes, I have two. Our English language learners studied animals and their habitats as part of a week-long summer camp that provides meaningful enrichment activities to help students continue their English language acquisition. This year's ELL program welcomed 15 students in grades 1 through 5 whose native languages are Spanish, Russian, Ukrainian, Polish, Portuguese, and Chinese. Campers concluded the week with a trip to the Turtleback Zoo in West Orange for a chance to see firsthand some of the animals they had studied. We extend our thanks to Edison World Language teachers Jillian Martinez and Mercedes Poinitz, who run the ELL program, and to K through 12 World Languages and ELL supervisor Enrique Pinquet. Secondly, the Westfield Green Team will be collecting gently used backpacks and lunch bags on Wednesday, September 4th, and during the morning drop-off only on Thursday, September 5th. Clearly labeled bins will be at the entrances of Tamaqua, Roosevelt, and Westfield High School. Residents who do not have children at these schools can avail themselves of the Wednesday drop-off to avoid the first day of school traffic on September 5th. The Green Team will pick up the donations promptly at 10 a.m. on Thursday and deliver them to Bernice's Place in Elizabeth in time for the items to be sorted and distributed to students in need. Thank you.
Thank you. Gretchen?
So the following Westfield residents have declared their candidacy for 5 seats on the Board of Education. Andrew Bauer, Michael Beelan, Patrick Justin Fahey, Brendan Galligan, and Amy Root will all be on the ballot in November for three-year seats. Robert Garrison and Noel Ebler for a 2-year unexpired term, and Brian Morrissey for a 1-year expired term. The 2-year and 1-year terms represent the remainder of the unexpired terms of 2 former board members who resigned in January 2019. Board of Education members whose terms are expiring as of January 2020 are Michael Beelan, Brendan Galligan, and Amy Root. The election will be held on Tuesday, November 5th, 2019, and a Board of Education Candidates Night, which is sponsored by the Parent Teacher Council, is scheduled for Wednesday, October 23rd at Westfield High School.
Thank you.
Sure.
Amy?
In its 17th year, the Extended School Year program in the Westfield Public School District maintains and strengthens the academic skills of our students who have been identified as those who would benefit from additional instruction and related services over the summer. Thank you to the many Westfield teachers and paraprofessionals who worked with approximately 32 students in grades 6 through 12 and about 130 students enrolled in the preschool to 5th grade program to help ensure their success for the coming school year.
Thank you. Dr. Dolan, do you have anything?
I do not.
My announcement is for our next meeting of the Westfield Board of Education will be held on Tuesday, September 17th at 7:30 p.m. right here at 302 Elm Street. The complete agenda will be available on Friday, September 13th on the board section of the district website. At this time, I'd like to recognize the public for agenda items only. Seeing nobody come forth to the podium, we'll move on. Thank you. Superintendent's report, Dr. Dolan.
Thank you. We actually have 2 superintendent reports this evening. The first one is a review and update of security procedures in our schools. And before starting, I want to make it clear that this presentation is really the result of a partnership between law enforcement and schools. We benefit from the fact that the Westfield Police Department and the Westfield schools work together constantly. It's been ongoing, it's not new, and we really benefit from that. Additionally, we benefit from the fact that the county and the state really are quite good at providing training for school employees regarding various aspects of security, and that's something we've been doing for years and continue to do so, including this summer. We also are pleased that we work with security consultants who work with us to make sure the various parts of our security plans are up to date and work together effectively. And we also appreciate, so this summer, we had a number of meetings with all the principals, the assistant principals, the supervisors, going over and making sure everyone discussed the various things that are challenging when you are running a school with many children and in a community that really likes to be part of the schools. That's not every community, but in Westfield and districts like ours, the community likes to be part of the schools. They like to support the education of their children. So how do you balance that? You know, you could lock the doors just all day and never invite people in. That has not been the culture. And yet, on the other hand, you can't deny the importance of security, always, and perhaps especially now. So we worked through and discussed many of those things over many meetings over the summer. And we certainly also appreciate the many community groups who utilize our facilities. We've had conversations with many of them and trying to work out, okay, so when the school is over, but you are using our rooms, our gyms, our whatever, how is it we work to make sure that our buildings are safe? What I can promise you is that everyone is trying, and everyone is talking, and everyone is dealing with all these issues. So with that introduction, I'm going to turn this over to our business administrator, Dana Sullivan, to talk about the security in our buildings.
Thank you. So tonight's presentation is going to be a combination of some of the things that we have done in the past for security, as well as some changes that are coming forward for the new school year. So the first slide talks about building upgrades. And, I mean, a lot of these we've talked about, but I think it is worth going through again. So all of our schools have access controls so that staff can see who is at the door before they allow anyone to enter the building. We've already had those systems in place, but enhanced pieces of equipment have been installed over the summer, so every school will have a better view of who is out there and what is around them as they're standing out there, and be able to see exactly what the person looks like and the surrounding area around that person.
All of the schools had an upgrade?
Yes, all of the schools did. We also have duress alarms in all of our schools, so panic alarms. They all are in various places that I'm not going to disclose in public, but they do have access. Those alarms at this point do not go directly to police, and that's because the police are not set up to accept that at this point. That's part of one of the things that may change with Alyssa's law that was recently passed in the state of New Jersey that requires duress alarms. But I think the state's still working out details because they have to work with local law enforcement for them to be able to accept these signals directly to them. But we do have duress alarms in every school building. All of our doors that have any glass around them, outside doors, have 3M film put on them that makes them shatterproof. So if a bullet was to be, somebody tried to shoot a bullet into those doors, the doors they wouldn't be able to stick their hand in and open a door or walk through the window. Also, some classrooms that are in vulnerable areas that have windows have also been fitted with those. Any of the new classroom doors that we're installing, and I think I talk about them in the next slide, they all are coming with the 3M film manufactured into the glass. We upgraded a couple years ago our whole clock and speaker system so that we can communicate throughout the building in any area of every building as well as outside. So if people are outside, they can hear the announcements as well. All of our fire alarm systems have been upgraded in the last several years. All of our doors have locks and have been secured. Going forward, they will all be secured, and we'll get to that a little more on it all the time. All of our diagrams, evacuation diagrams, in all of our classrooms have been upgraded to show people in every room exactly how to exit the building quickly. And we have installed hundreds and hundreds of cameras in the district over the last several years. We did it in about 4 or 5 different phases, including one that we've just finished recently. So we do have we have an ability to see a lot of the inside as well as the outside of all of our schools, and we use that.
I'm going to ask you to wait till after Dana's finished, and then I think we could take a couple questions, if that's all right with Dr. Noel.
Yes.
In reference to the security issue.
So, building upgrades planned. We are currently have a project underway to replace almost all of the interior doors at the high school and the 2 middle schools. So those are all classroom doors, which now have intruder locks, so the teacher can just lock the door from inside by pressing a button rather than we have the pin in there to enable them to do it quickly. They used to have to use a key, so these will now be just hit a button and they lock. Our vulnerable areas like gyms and auditoriums, all of the doors will remain locked except for one door, which will be hooked up to our PA system. So when a lockdown is called through the PA system, where we generate something on a computer or a phone to do that, those doors will automatically lock as soon as a lockdown is initiated by a staff member in the school. That project we're shooting for the end of October, early November to be finished with those 3 schools. And then next summer we'll begin all of the other schools, and that'll probably be done sometime early into the 2021 school year. All of the schools will have security gates that are going to be installed in areas that will allow us to have access to the gym at night for outside entities like WBA. So they'll be able to access bathrooms, but they won't be able to access the other parts of the building. Those doors will all be hooked up to fire alarms by code. We have to do that, so if the fire alarm goes off, the security gates will unlock. And they will also allow egress, so if somebody does somehow get trapped in there, they can get out. Okay, so during school hours. Staff have been, we have, as Dr. Dolan mentioned, we've met with principals numerous times this summer, and had discussions so that we were all on the same page and that we will be consistent with what our procedures are for the coming year. Every exterior door will remain locked all day, every day, unless a staff person is there monitoring it to allow access to children or a group of children or whatever, whoever is accessing at that point. Or contractors, which sometimes we have to do as well. Doors used by staff and students will be limited and monitored. So we have limited the number of doors that allow key access or card access. And we've done that intentionally so that we don't have, every time we open a door, it creates a vulnerability. So we're trying to reduce the ability for people to enter. So we will continue to do that. Every school will have a drop box outside, and parents will be informed that if they have to deliver something, whether it's lunch or a piece of sporting equipment or whatever it is to their child, that they will put it in that box, which will be clear, so the staff member, before they go out and collect that item, can make sure that it looks like it's something that's okay for them to retrieve. And each school will have clear and visible signage at each school directing any visitor to go directly to the main office. And again, we do have cameras, so staff people in the main office, after they allow somebody to enter the building, they can see where those people are going if they don't go right to the office, and they will investigate. Okay, so some new procedures for visitors. We are going to require all visitors to have an appointment before they enter the building. We're 24 hours in advance is going to be the standard. We do understand that there may be emergencies from time to time for a sick child or something of that nature, but without an appointment, and that will stand for anybody that's coming to visit to the school, whether it's someone that's a parent or related to a staff member or what have you, that will be a requirement. All visitors will be vetted through a district-approved script. That script has already been developed in conjunction with Stonegate, our consultants. Over this last couple of weeks, we have had every secretary in the district, as well as some other staff members, attend training on this. They've been trained on what to ask for and also what to look for. That's been a really big focus on the trainings that the state's provided, that I've gone to as the school security specialist. It's identifying people in crisis and doing something about it, because all of these horrific events that we've had happen over the last few years, in most cases, somebody has been aware that they were planning to do something. So the signs are there. So a lot of our training has been and will continue to be throughout this school year, and training staff to identify and to notify someone if they see somebody in a crisis, whether it's a student or a staff person or anyone. All visitors should be prepared to show a government-issued ID so that we can verify that they are the person that has the appointment scheduled. All visitors must report to the main office and sign in. All visitors will be issued a visitor ID badge, and all visitors are expected to return to the main office, return their badge, and sign out so that we know when people leave the building as well. So everybody will go through the same door for entrance and exit. No visitor appointments will be approved during arrival and dismissal time. So that's our most vulnerable time, when we have hundreds of kids, or in the high school, thousands of kids coming in and going. We want to limit the number of visitors that have to be in the school, drastically limited to only few, if extremely necessary. Otherwise, there will be no appointments during those times.
Dana, how would that work with the high school, say, open lunch, where you constantly have kids coming and going out of the building?
Well, they monitor that through the back door. They monitor the kids. The kids have IDs that they use
Okay.
to go in and out. And staff stand back there and watch as the kids go in and out.
And what about for like PTO meetings? Will everyone have to submit who's attending 24 hours in advance?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Or don't make them during the school day?
And we understand that there are going to be challenges to this. We haven't worked through every one of those challenges. We can't sit here now on August 27th and tell you how we're gonna handle kindergarten moving up in June. But, these are things we're gonna have to work through as they come up. But for the start of the school year, this is the plan we're putting in place, and we'll see where we have to make adjustments as needed.
And the principals are working things out specifically for their building, so they will be sending out letters to parents about some specific things in their building. And they've been focusing on what happens at the beginning of the school year.
So other concerns for after hours, the YMCA, so as you know, they're there in the afternoons for their aftercare programs. We've been in contact with them over the summer. They've already had this procedure in some schools where the parents will have to call one of the Y staff members, and then the Y will bring their child to them. That will now be instituted in all the schools. So there will no longer be doors open where people can go and pick up their students. They'll have to contact someone in the Y. When the Y goes out to play on the playground, which they do sometimes, in the past they've been leaving a door propped open. They will now have access. One person from the Y will have access, so they will have to accompany the child back into the building if they have to use the bathroom or something. Otherwise, those doors will remain locked. As far as other after-school activities, it's going to kind of have to be a school-by-school thing with like Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, and whether the leader, the scout leader comes and meets them, stays at the door and lets people in as they come that they know should be there. Depending on what kind of event it is, they'll have to work that out. Nighttime events. So nighttime events for WBA, these are non-school nighttime events I'm talking about now. WBA or some other use of the facility. There, it's not really possible to leave the doors open. There's too many people coming and going. But all of our classroom doors will be locked unless there is a custodian present or a staff member present. Custodians will also do checks, which they do already, but they will continue to do building checks before they leave at night after all of the people are out of the building to make sure there's nothing there that shouldn't be there. Also, we will eventually have these security gates soon at the middle schools and high school, and next year at the other schools, which will block off most of the building so that they will be secure in the evening. Other security measures in place. We have, as Dr. Dolan mentioned, we have been in constant contact with the police department. We work very closely with them with all of our plans, and we will continue to do so. We do have 3 SROs now. A number of years ago, we didn't have any. Then we added 1, and I believe last year we added 2 more, so we were up to 3. We've also had increased presence by police in all of our schools, which I think everybody's aware of, and that will continue as well. Lockdown and emergency drills, we really have trained staff very well to do that, as well as children, and I think at this point the schools are really secure with their ability to lock down very quickly and get everybody out of harm's way quickly. We annually update our emergency management plan. As I mentioned earlier, we trained all secretaries over the summer on vetting visitors and warning behaviors to look for visitors and or staff or students. We will continue to provide comprehensive training to all of our staff, as we have done in the past. And then, again, as I mentioned, this training will include identifying someone who is in a crisis, who may either could harm themselves or others. So the training this year will be on the basics, but also devoted to that topic a little more. That concludes the presentation, so if there's any questions from the board before we move on.
I have a few, Dana, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Doors, I just want to confirm, so, the elementary schools, even though they're not being done, they've been fitted for years with that quick lock
Yes.
technology,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
ultimately, the
Thank you.
new doors will be better, but they still have that technology.
Yes,
Right,
and,
okay,
and in a lot of cases, the teachers are keeping their doors locked during the day,
okay.
especially if they're near doors, like exit doors.
I know one of the issues at the high school that we've talked about for years, probably forever, is the issue of kids leaving to go move their vehicles during the day. So is there some sort of mechanism that will alert the office if there's a door that's been opened if one of the high school students like goes out the side, or
There's not yet.
Okay.
We have talked about it. We can install those mechanisms. We haven't really identified where a particular door is that's a problem. So we haven't moved on that because we haven't really, that hasn't been we haven't noted
Yeah.
a specific place for that to be something that we have to do at this point.
Wherever the paraprofessionals aren't stationed.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably gonna be a little bit more of our focus this year on whether we need to do that. And if we do need to do that, we certainly can.
Okay.
But there's,
Just
yeah,
as an aside, adding on to that, because that was one of my questions, is, because I know it's always been a problem over there on the side street, Trinity and so forth, that because so many kids come from that direction, somebody ends up propping a door over there because so many kids are coming from that sort of direction and they want to get into school. Have we looked into how to keep the door not propped open, especially from 7 to 9-ish, when the kids are coming to school and, you know.
well, that's how we can do it.
We need a body there.
So it's gonna, yeah, I mean, I think that that's part of this transition phase, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I think that especially those Trinity places where the kids, because so many parents will drop off down there. And so, whether it's some sort of, at the beginning of the year, monitoring to, to constant check, and then I think the ability to sort of have an alarm, an internal alarm go off when those doors get opened or propped.
Or
is
even an
gonna be
audible
critical.
alarm, let the kids know that they're
Yeah, well, then that'll,
That's gonna, yeah,
propping the door open.
right, that would
And
be disruptive.
Just add that, so Mrs. Asfendis, the new principal at Westfield High School, has requested that we be able to extend some hours early in the morning, so that the two doors that will be utilized can be manned.
okay. I know there's a lot to work out, so I don't mean to get in the nitty gritty, I just, that's, the, secretaries, all the training that we've done for the secretaries, what about substitute secretaries? Are they, I don't know when a secretary's out, I know most of the schools have, all the schools have at least 2 secretaries? But if we have a substitute, are we
Training.
giving them training, or are we just saying you can't let anybody in, or something to ensure that there's no slips through the crack there?
Well, we have written instructions for the secretaries so that that is available in every office. So
Okay.
even if it's, I don't believe the substitute secretaries were trained. We could continue that in the, going forward, but they do have it listed on paper, both what the script is and what the regulations are.
Because I would
I-
suspect a lot of our subs are people who've been subbing for
Right.
years, so they
Right.
need to sort of be looped in on this, on the new protocol.
I recommended to the secretaries in the last 2 weeks when we were training that if they do have somebody new there, that they should go through it with them.
Yeah, okay.
But also with these new systems we have, anybody can really answer the door. It's not as before, because of where the buttons were, you had to be in a certain desk to do it. Now they both will have access to do it. So if there is a sub there who's, really brand new and we don't want them doing it, the other secretary can easily just answer the door.
Okay. And then I have a comment and then my last question. So I just want to thank you guys. I know the bulk of your summer was spent doing this work while the rest of us were, doing whatever we do. So thank you. And I'm also really grateful to the police department and the mayor. I know she's been a big proponent of the community policing, and that was a huge benefit last year of her, her advocacy for that. And so I'm grateful for the work doing together. My last question, Dana, is what is the status of, I think at the end of the last school year, we had approved funding to ask George to come up with plans for the entryway. That's still in the works and will be something that the facilities committee is gonna review?
Yes,
Okay.
so George is here tonight, not for that topic, but George is going to, our first facilities meeting is September 6th, which is next Friday. He is going to bring to that meeting plans for renovating every school, and some schools are minor renovations, some are major renovations. So that'll be presented to facilities next Friday. And then the next board meeting, September 17th, it will be presented to the full board.
Great.
And then if we want to go forward with that referendum, we would do that also in March. Not to jump ahead to the kindergarten presentation, but as 2 separate referendum for those dates.
Great.
One thing, just circling back to the secretaries, and one thing that we have told them is that, we wanted to make them, we understand that this is a lot of work for secretaries. So what we have told them is that we are there to support them. We understand this is added to their already number of tasks that they have, and but how important that this is. So if they are in the middle of something else and they need to just say to the person out there, please wait a moment and I will be with you, they are allowed to do that, because this is something that we can't have somebody multitasking and doing something else and then you're just hitting the door to let somebody in. So if somebody has to wait for a few minutes, we understand that and we will support them with that, but that this is something critical that we really need them, when they're letting somebody in, they really need to pay attention to that person and to what the surrounding area is around that person, so that we're sure that we're letting somebody in the building that really should be in the building.
Yeah, that's an excellent point.
Yeah.
And that is gonna be a little bit different, and, you
Right.
know, parents who are here tonight who have concerns about security, parents who've been following along and commenting on social media over the summer, you know, I hope that you will talk to your friends and say, you know, things that may be a little bit different at school this year, but let's all get behind and support the staff, because that's,
Right.
you know, we all want the safety of our kids first and foremost.
Yes.
And we wanna do, all of us, what we can to support our staff as they try to do that as well. So
Right.
if things are a little bit different, if things seem a little bit abrupt to you, please, you know, pack your patience if you go to school, and just, you know, keep that in mind.
Dan, if I can, so I did receive an email from Principal Malanga, Ms. Malanga, in reference to Girl Scouts and Cub Scouts. The question I have is, can there be a similar email that goes out district-wide to every school, to every parent, talking about these new changes about the 24-hour? I don't know if you have that already
So,
planned, but,
yes,
okay.
Actually, it's ready to go after this board
Okay.
meeting.
Because I got the
And
other
then-
one, I think, this morning.
And
so
again,
they
mine is a
went to
little
that.
more general to introduce the idea to every parent and every staff member, but the principals are going to follow up with their own letters. And then I have a welcome back message that's sent before school starts, and I talk about it there as well. So we really are trying to communicate it in a number of different ways, because it is a change, right? So we're trying to communicate.
And the other question I had, and I know you don't need to go into details on it, but were the fire drills also looked at in terms of security measures, and looking at any need to change the way fire drills are done, and when students are moving to and from the school to another location, if that's the case?
yes,
Okay.
yes. That's been for the last several years, we've talked about that. Looked at that.
And Dana, along the same line of questioning that may or may not be able to be answered, are there any plans for ongoing compliance audits, whether it's internal or external, to see if what we're doing in September is followed in December when it's snowing and cold?
Yes.
I just had a couple questions. Anybody else?
I had two.
Okay, go ahead. You go first. I'm happy to go last, because everybody takes my questions and maybe I would have.
Yeah, some of them have already gone away. So, you mentioned about like during the evening events when like the WBA plays, we'll have the gates down, but then they still have access to the restrooms. Based on what you said, the custodians will be checking those areas that no one decides to stay overnight.
Yes.
And
Yes.
okay,
Yes.
and
We
then
we
so,
also have burglar alarms, which would pick up.
so they have motion sensors.
Yes.
Okay. And then the second one was related to the exterior windows. You mentioned that they're covered in strategic, or have the coating in strategic locations. Was that internal or external? Were you talking about that?
External,
Okay, it was external. Okay.
yeah.
What?
I mean, some of them are internal as well, like, so some of the classrooms that are right near like an entrance have them on their classroom doors as well, but all the new doors have
Right, the whole
smaller
high school will
windows.
have.
They're gonna have smaller windows that you couldn't get in anyway. But the classrooms that have bigger windows right now, in older doors, that might be right near an entrance or an exit that somebody could penetrate, they
Okay.
have the film on them as well.
That's all.
I have a question about the drop boxes.
Mhm.
Right now, at least I know in Wilson, it's in between the two doors in the vestibule area.
That's changing.
That's gonna change.
So if that changes for the whole school year, what will be the case in the winter and in inclement weather?
They're
Will still
gonna be outside,
Okay.
yeah.
So they'll all have, it'll be like storage containers with lids?
Yes, it's not gonna be the chest that was there, exactly right. That's right.
Hey, I'm sorry, the visitors who make the appointment 24 hours in advance, is that a website or is it a phone call?
No, it
Or
would
is
probably
it-
be a phone call or an email. Each school is going to have to work that out a little bit on their own, because we did develop actually a district-wide spreadsheet for appointments, But, because each school, certainly Washington isn't gonna have the same system for making appointments as the high school would.
Right.
So they have to tailor that a little bit. But that, it'll mostly be done, it's not like people can just go on and make an appointment. They're gonna
Right.
have to contact a staff member as they would normally would. So
Okay.
they're,
And truthfully, the majority of appointments that parents make are made 24 hours in advance. The majority, not all of them, and for most parents, the majority. So if, for example, parents are coming in to meet with a child study team or a guidance counselor or something, they have contacted them often by email, right? And then that guidance person or that child study team case manager will submit, actually, they already do this also in most cases, submit that to the secretary designated in that building to keep the appointment roster. But we're adding more to it now. Now anything, we can't have the pop-in visits.
I think it's with the PTO meetings that are during the day right now, where people necessarily aren't sure if they're coming to the last minute or not. They have to know that they have to go and submit their name 24 hours in advance.
Right, that
Or
is-
somehow the PTO coordinates that on who will be attending.
Yes, you're right.
It would be great if we could figure out a way to do it all electronically at some point. I appreciate that. Maybe
So
we
no.
won't be up and running. No, you don't think so?
Sorry, I'm sorry I said it like that, but we've been talking about all
Tell
these
me what
things
you
quite
really
a bit.
think,
Yeah,
Diane.
exactly. We really have spent a lot of hours on this, so. Because not everyone who wants to come is going to be allowed to. So
Right.
they can't just sign up and say they need to be there at 9:45 because they might be someone, for example, they could be someone where we know that there's a custody issue or something, right? So they can't just sign in and go. It has to go through somebody in the school to make sure that that person really needs to be in the school for a valid reason.
So the roster's set internally, so I contact whoever I'm meeting at the school, they approve it, and they notify the secretary that Gretchen Olig's allowed to come on this day at this time.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's going to be a shift for a number of teachers, I think. I
Yeah.
don't think it's that big of a shift for child study team, and even not for guidance either, for most cases. But for some teachers, it can be a shift. So that's part of, when I do my opening speech, that's part of what we're going to be going over. They're also receiving the same email later tonight that parents are receiving, so that people have time to consider it, think about it, and we get everybody on the same page.
I think it'll be a shift too. Like I used to volunteer in the library. In the morning, I'd say, yeah, I have free time today, and I'd just call up the librarian. But now it's not 24 hours in advance.
Yeah, right.
Right.
And that is part of the challenges, because there are a lot of parents who last minute
Right. No, it's
try
great.
to help the schools. So that's,
But what about when it's an evening event, like we hold a lot of college prep events and things like that? Those parents won't have to register 24 hours in advance if they want to come to an evening event?
right. We struggle with that. And when you think of all the evening events we have, and so the college fair or something,
Right.
we're not going to get all those people with appointments to come in. So some event, if it's an evening event and everyone is coming of their own volition, we're still working that through as to how we do that. We probably will limit the access doors, et cetera, but I don't think it's going to, at this point, we don't think that's going to be an RSVP or an appointment. It's just, we think that would be not manageable.
Because they're often
Same
held
with
in
that
the
letter.
cafeteria and, which then provides access to other areas of the building depending upon where the gates are.
Right. It truly is a balance, because we're not gonna stop, college night at the high school because there are a lot of people coming, but on the other hand, you wanna just be mindful. So, and what we've also come down to think is, all right, school hours are very contained, and that was the first thing we worked on. School hours, everybody on the same page, this is what we're doing with school hours. Then you have the right after school hours, right? We've been working on that. Then you have the nights, school events, and then you have the nights and weekend school events, and you have the nights and weekends community events, right? So they're four separate buckets. And we really have been all brainstorming, working, talking to districts, talking to security consultants, talking to Westfield Police Department, but we don't have every answer, we're still working on it. But we have focused on, we're starting school, we're focused on the school day, and that's definitely been a focus. And the right after school part as well has been the second area of focus. And we've worked on the other parts, but we're still working. We're working again tomorrow, we have a meeting.
Great.
So along
How
those
does
lines,
that-
just real quick, back to school, then we won't have to make an appointment.
For back to school night.
Right.
And again, read carefully. I know we all get too many emails from everyone, not just the schools. We have too many emails in our life, but read the emails that come from the principals, because they are really trying to get the answers out to the parents for that particular school. They're gonna be similar, they're all talking to each other, but the elementary schools are not gonna be like the high school, and each school has something a little bit different where they have to tweak it. So the principals are really trying, and we're working on getting messages out.
I just had 2 questions. That's okay. Card access. So if a teacher or a secretary or whoever has card access to get into the building, is that also limited, that they only can get into the building from, say, 7 to 4 or 4:30? So it's not unlimited access with your
No.
card?
No. It's limited and only to the building that they need access to. So if they're in one school, that would be the only building they have access to. In the event of like the Y program that I was talking about, they're only gonna have access to one door. The
Okay.
one door they need, because we can limit it to any door we want or anything, so,
Okay.
yeah. All of the cards, most of them are done by group
Mm-hmm.
of who has access to what and when.
Great.
And they're immediately canceled if someone leaves the district or if we're notified that one is missing.
Right.
And I do mean immediately.
Right. And I know you said Stonegate, or I was here when he was coming, was here to train the secretaries and everything. And they were, not that they were good with this policy, did they have any other suggestions of things that we should be considering?
We incorporated some of their changes, and
Okay.
before we presented it to the staff, we went to them and had them look at it and give us some suggestions, so we made some adjustments based on their input.
And the secretaries had some great questions because they're the ones who are responsible, so they know what the potential issues are. So they
Right.
did raise a lot of
Yes.
questions. The sessions actually went longer than we had anticipated because they did raise very good questions.
Yeah, they were very, very engaged.
That's great, that's
Mhm.
great. So I just want to thank all board members that, this is something we're very passionate about, that we all believe in, and that you took the time and effort to look at the plan and so forth, come up with great questions. It's great questions for us, it's great questions for Dana, and it's great questions for the community at large who may be watching this, as to what we put into the changes for security. And thank you very much for that. Also, I think Dr. Dolan, Dana, and your whole staff for all of that, what you did over the summer. And also, having the ability, myself and Amy, to sit down with the police chief and see how passionate he too is about, working with us and making sure that our schools are as safe as possible, and, giving resources when needed and so forth. It is truly a community effort, working together. Everybody does have their responsibilities, but we all care and we want to make this the safest place that we can. So I thank everybody. I'm going to give them a couple of minutes just to ask questions, just because it's on topic right now, if that's
Sure.
okay.
Sure.
If you have anything, comments or questions, and you want to come to the podium, you have to state your name and address.
Hi, Alicia Gerby-Vierak, 220 Jefferson. Thank you to you all for working over the summer. It's clear you've really been thoughtful about this. I do have some follow-up questions. So panic buttons, they don't go to the police. So panic button goes off, what happens?
It goes to the alarm company, and the alarm company notifies the police department.
Okay, so similar to your home,
Yes.
okay.
We
So-
do test those, by the way, monthly, to make
Okay.
sure that they work.
Excellent. So I do still feel, we had a list of 8 points of upgrades we made. And one of the upgrades we haven't added is people. How do you keep, kids from propping open a door? If you have someone standing there saying, you cannot prop open a door. You have a person standing there who sees the door propped open and they close it. Or, in the case of a stranger approaches the building, isn't allowed in because they don't have an appointment, and then they go sit in their car for a half hour. And to Marquis, that's exactly what happened, right? So again, maybe an extra set of eyes, trained eyes, someone who worked in the police force years ago. And the way I kind of feel is out of those 8 points, is Stonegate the provider on all of those 8 points? Are we only looking at things they provide? Do they not provide security guards, and is that why we're not looking at them?
So they don't provide security guards, they don't provide anything, they provide consulting services.
So
They
it is
don't-
it's a third party then,
Yeah.
who then you go out and
Right.
find your own. Okay,
Correct.
perfect.
But just to the point of the having security guards to look and
Mhm.
monitor. The approach that we have taken, and this has been for the past 6 or 7 years since we've been really focused on security, has been in training staff. Because I believe Columbine as well as Parkland both had armed people on site.
Right.
And it didn't stop the terrible events that happened there.
Right,
So the
but
training-
Tonquist,
the-
if you have a security guard who sees a man who's never been to the school before, approach the school, not get in and go back and sit in his vehicle for 30 minutes, I think a security guard would say, hey, that's out of place.
Well, what we're doing is actually training all of our staff to do that, so that we have any staff member in the building,
So
that's
this-
part of what we
This was
train
training
them
that's
to
been
do.
added, because when we spoke in
No.
June, you said, hey, our secretaries at the door have this training where they could see if someone's in distress.
Well, I think we're talking about two different things, because what, the secretaries are letting people into the building,
Mhm.
allowing access. But all of our staff have been trained, it's not new, they have been trained, and we'll
Okay.
continue to train them to what to look for. We have trained, starting back to 5 years ago, we started training staff when they're outside with kids to be aware.
Right.
If a car comes, if you see the same car come through a couple of times, what to look for. We've been doing that for years. Every year, I think we probably do a little more of that, because every time there's one of these terrible events, more information comes out from Homeland Security and the FBI and whatnot. And that usually gets to us through Stonegate or through training that I attend with the
Mhm.
state. So do I think we've enhanced that training with staff? Probably. But that's the approach that we've taken. I mean, we actually have increased. I mean, as I said before, we do have 3
Mhm.
SROs. But it's not gonna be possible to have numerous police officers at every school all day long. I don't see how that would ever happen from a fiscal standpoint or from, I mean, Westfield Police Department is not that large. So what we're training, and we have a lot of adults in every school. So we're training staff to do that, to be aware and to, that, like, a staff person should see that if somebody is in a car that shouldn't be there. Not one person.
And just to add to that, so when a school calls the police after they do that, they notify my office. And
Okay.
I will tell you, that does happen.
Okay.
I can't tell you exactly how many times, but they did notice somebody who was standing outside, they didn't know, the person kept on standing, or whatever,
Mhm.
whatever seems suspicious. And I will also tell you, when they do that, the police do come quickly to check that out.
Okay.
So that is done, and it should continue to come. And I'll tell you, sometimes it is the parent who comes in, right, for the appointment now, but the parent who comes, who says, I don't know if you know, but there's that person over there, is there a reason why that person there? It could be the electrician who's checking something out in
Mhm.
wherever, or it could be someone we need to follow up on. So everybody should be paying attention, you're absolutely right.
And
Now-
I just want to say, I support all of what you said, because since I've been sitting here, I have heard of situations where people within our staff have made it a point to let, other staff members know that there are strange cars, strange
Right.
people, so the training is working,
Mhm.
because the feedback is coming back, and they are
Mhm.
addressing it at that point in time.
And now, voting, election day, any changes gonna happen there?
Right, so, correct me if I'm wrong, at this point, so we've worked with the Union County Board of Elections forever.
Mhm.
Would I love to have it out of every building? Oh, yes. Do
Mhm.
they know that? They really do.
Okay.
But they have a myriad of laws that I will never understand of where they can and can't place. We've given them lists of where else they could place them in the
Right.
town, right, because they need certain things. And when I do mean lists, right? We're down to 3 buildings?
Three,
Three
yeah.
buildings. And in those buildings, there is a separate, it can take place in the gym, and the gym is separate. For example, some people might remember, it used to be in the gym in Washington. Well, the
Mhm.
gym in Washington is right in the middle of the building. You cannot,
Right.
cordon it off. But in the other places, you can. And we did have police officers at every site. And we remind them to come early, because one year that didn't happen, people came
Yeah.
late. But we do have police officers there, and the 3 schools that are now used are separate.
Okay, so just on a personal anecdote, and I actually notified my principal of this, I didn't know if it got up to you. So on the most recent election day, which I believe was in either May or June, it was after 4 o'clock, so a police officer had left. There were still several children on the playground, and a woman who was, maybe north of 75, drives her car up the ramp because there was a sign, wheelchair accessible. She drives her car up the ramp, the playground ramp,
Yeah.
where there were several children playing. And because it was after 4 o'clock, the police officer had left. And I was there with my child who's old enough to know not to run out of cars. So I, like, run in front of a car. So I'm in panic mode, and I look for the little kids to make
Right.
sure they're standing back. And there was no one to tell at that point. I mean, I could have went into the school building, but at that point, I was just like, I need to leave.
Mhm.
So if, let's say
Yeah.
there's election day at Wilson, I probably won't send my kids this year, to be perfectly honest. And the last question I have, so September, I know there's gonna be tryouts at the high school. So tryouts are going on, someone walks in who's not supposed to be there. Like, how do the police know that those tryouts are going on?
You're talking about after school?
A nighttime
Right, so-
event? Because this is something that's going on in 3 weeks. There's gonna be tryouts at the high school.
Well, I think we mentioned before that at those events, that there's gonna have to be doors unlocked. And
No,
there's not
I
going to be-
complete, but I understand that. But, so again, what happened at Tamaqua? There was kids out on the lacrosse field. The police didn't know those kids were back there.
Yes, they did.
They
went
did?
back there, absolutely. I was there that afternoon.
So they just let them continue
Yeah,
to play?
they went, well,
Okay.
because they were not in danger. The police, absolutely.
Okay.
They did a complete sweep of all the grounds and all the building and went down and spoke with them. They were not in danger. The man had been arrested, and they spoke to the coaches there. So they were not forgotten. They were, absolutely not. They took care of them, and they were safe, and they were fine, and the police gave them the option, and the coaches said, yeah, they can continue down there. They were
So
safe.
let's just say there is some type of list of, there's an event at the high school, there's probably this many kids expected to be in attendance. If the police get a call, they kind of know what they're dealing with.
I think the police should get a call from whoever is running the event.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the police can monitor all the events that happen in our buildings after school hours. I really just don't think they can. I'm not trying to be difficult, but I mean, some of you know how many events go on in our schools at night. The elementary schools, there's usually only a few. The secondary schools, the police couldn't, I don't think, someone can correct me, I don't think they could possibly keep track of all the things
Right.
that are going on. So whoever is responsible for the evening events, they're the ones who will have to reach out to the police if they have a worry, a concern, or anything else. And the police do respond.
No, I'm sure they do. I'm very thankful. Obviously, in June, they responded and everything worked out well. I've had nothing but positive experiences. But I just feel as if, I think parents may be under the, I certainly thought that someone knew if I send my kid to a tryout, that someone knows he's there and someone, I guess, has an action plan. And I really feel like maybe for night events, there's not really an action plan.
I think it depends on what the activity is. I mean, if it's a tryout for a sporting team, that's a Westfield team, our coaches have all been trained. So they would know what to do in a situation as to a lockdown for that group.
You're talking
But
about our school teams, right,
If
Dana?
they're, yeah.
Yeah,
if
you're
it's a
probably
school
talking
team.
about,
I'm
But
talking more
not if
like-
it's a
like youth
WBA.
sports?
Yeah, sure.
well, youth sports, there are adults that are in charge there. There's
Yeah,
a list of
yeah,
who's
okay.
showing up to be there.
Right.
In the past, I've sat at a table and signed kids in, so I
Mhm.
know there is a level of that, but what needs to happen if something goes awry on a particular evening, that's gonna be something the groups that use our space have to consider.
Yeah, sure. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, what did you say I
Name
had
and address.
My name and address, hi.
Yes.
I'm Megan Brennan. My address is 862 Rawway Avenue. My twins go to Tamaqua School. They're in second grade. And I'm a frequent volunteer at Tamaqua School, including serving as a Girl Scout leader after hours. I've gotten the policy from Mr. Dulks, and I think it's a really good policy. I'm really I'm pleased with everything that everybody's done, but I do think that we're still really falling short of what we should be looking at here, to the point of school resource officers. I mean, this town had a $14 million budget surplus that they were looking to see what we could do with our money last spring. I don't see what would be more important than protecting our children. And my understanding is that there's a school resource officer at the middle school, at the 2 middle schools and at the high school, but then there's 3 that are roaming. So that would mean we need 3 more in order to devote 1 to each
No,
elementary
there's-
school, is that
there's
right?
SROs, and then there's police that, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
There are 3 SROs, full-time SROs.
Okay,
And then there are regular on-duty police officers that go into the other schools. And the SROs also will go into schools.
okay,
from
but there's
time to
nobody
time.
stationed at the
Not
school
all
all the
day.
time in the elementary
No,
schools,
not
right?
all day.
But they are in the middle schools and the high school, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so I guess that's really what, and I come to you as, like, I want to solve this problem. I'm not pointing fingers. I don't know where that money comes from. Does it come from the Board of Ed? Does it come from the town? Do I go talk to the mayor about this? But that's something I feel extremely strongly about, that there's no reason why our secretaries, our custodians are in charge of security in our buildings. I mean, as a Girl Scout leader, I have no training. So I'm in school after hours, there's a lockdown drill, something happens. I have no idea what to do. And that's what I said to Mr. Dulks the day after this happened at Tamaqua. People come and go in the building. I'm in a room with 12 girls. They know more about what to do in that event than I do. And that's concerning. So I also think that we should have an electronic visitor management system, like the ones that a lot of districts have. They're maybe $2,000. I mean, I looked them up. I'm shocked that Stonegate wouldn't recommend something like this.
So we've looked at those. The issue with that, well, first of all, again, we talked about earlier is the community, allowing community in and, that struggle. But also, to my knowledge, the only thing that will tell us is if somebody is on the sex offender database.
You can tailor it to.
Yeah, but you can't tailor it for anything other than that.
No, you can
Um,
tailor it to custody disputes. You can tailor it. I mean, I'm a reporter by trade. I spent 2 hours today researching these systems. I mean, I know that's not a ton of time, but I can
Well,
tell you that.
My
that-
understanding for some of that, you need to get approval from the state police, and the state police will not approve schools because they tier different groups, different entities based on the risk. And right now, schools are not approved as a tier 1, I think it is. So that you don't, right now, I believe the only thing schools can do is the sex offenders. So I don't know that would be an answer to some of the, concerns that we would have about people with guns or whatnot.
And, sorry, regarding the custody issues, we do have that flagged in our system.
Yeah, I
so
mean, I'm not,
the office is
that's
doing
not
that.
a main concern of mine. that was one of the things that.
It truly is for me. I mean,
I'm sorry?
it truly is for me. Custody issues are a major concern.
Oh, no, I'm concerned about it as well, but I'm saying that's not the kind of threat I'm concerned about as much as the gunman who's sitting in the parking lot of my kid's school, with many rounds of bullets.
I don't believe at this time that there is a system that would allow us the ability to know that somebody entering, because there's privacy issues for people, that we're not law enforcement, so I don't believe that those systems actually allow us that access at this
And we
point.
have tried to look into it, and we've spoken with other districts.
Yeah, I mean, East Brunswick uses it, and some of our teachers whose children go to the East Brunswick schools I've spoken to them about it.
I'm actually confused. I feel like we're talking about 2 different things. You said, and what did you call the system at the beginning? You said it's like
It is an electronic visitor management system. So when
but
you
that
go
would
to a
never
building.
tell us.
So what some of these
That's not like the system by which I'm gonna go in to schedule my appointment,
No.
which was the question I asked earlier.
Yeah.
It would
Right.
somehow flag.
This is when you go to a building in New
people.
York
Scan your
City, like
driver's license.
my old office building in New York City. You have to present a government-issued ID to them.
Right.
They take a picture of you, they
Right.
scan your ID,
Okay.
and presumably run it through some sort of database.
I see.
Now, they know if you've ever been in the building before, too, so it's helpful in that, I mean, I know we're gonna ask for an ID every time parents come into the building, and I'm great with that. I have no problem with any of these security measures. Inconvenience me, as much as you have to keep these kids safe. But it also can keep track of that, so that.
If
it'll
like somebody
scan it.
has a conviction, something like that, is,
I don't even know if
we
that, I'm not even worried about that, I mean,
I'm
that,
just thinking, like, if we had that for the guy at Tamacos, it probably wouldn't have told us anything, right? I mean,
well, he had also been in the building several times before, from what I've heard, that,
But would it help for events where you're trying to track even during school events, where you can see that it's parents that are coming or people who have RSVP'd to an event, to make sure that they've been vetted through a system beforehand, rather than just letting people walk through the doors during a school day?
Right, the ones we've been able to, we have talked to other districts who are utilizing it, and we've talked to parents who are familiar with it, et cetera. The ones we find, what they identify are those who are sex offenders.
Correct.
Now, if there's a sex offender living anywhere near us, anywhere near a school, not only in Westfield, but anywhere near it, we do get notification of that. But the ones, if you find something else, give it to us and we'll take a look.
well, what doesn't Stonegate, I mean, we're paying how many hundreds of thousands of dollars to Stonegate? They don't, this isn't the kind of thing that they,
It's nowhere near hundreds of thousands of dollars,
No?
first off. And they have,
what
we
is
have
our
talked-
contract with them? I thought I had read it was
it's about
hundreds.
$15,000. No, we've put millions of dollars into the school district, but into the buildings with all these changes, but none of that has gone to Stonegate.
But if
and-
there is a new system, give us the name and we'll
Yeah.
research it. We're
But-
not against
But,
it. if it's
okay, but you
effective.
understand that it's a little crazy that I'm just like a parent off the street. So I spent 2 hours today of my workday researching this, right? So there are people that are experts in this. And if we haven't hired them,
we
No,
have,
we
and they're
have.
telling us that there's no system for schools like the one you're presenting. So what we're asking is that if you have information that
Well, no,
contradicts that,
but
please share it
There's
with
not
us.
there are systems, but their systems don't do what you think it does.
well, I'm not
In fact,
saying that.
I'm not really clear as to what you think it does do, because, and also we're talking about two different things here, because we're also talking about culture changes from what I'm hearing here. We don't have the policy that says only parents can come to school. So for events like a moving up ceremony or something, we don't have anything in place that says you have to be a parent. So one of the suggestions was that we get this system to vet that people are just parents.
It's not
Well,
just parents,
that's-
nannies,
well, okay.
grandparents, whoever picks your
But
kid
what-
up at school
I
or
don't
might
know
need to
what would
pick
be
up your
in this
kids.
database. Like, so the database right now, as my understanding in most of these systems, will only spit out if somebody is a registered sex offender.
Which is good
So
information to
it is
know. I
good
think we can
information,
all
but we do
agree.
get notified mostly, but it is good information. We're
So
not
if a contractor
we're not
comes to the
discounting
building, do you
that.
know if he is a sex offender? If an electrician comes into the
So-
building, do you know that?
Sometimes we wouldn't let them in if we knew that. So no, we don't. If somebody was, if we knew they were a sex offender, they wouldn't come into
Do
the
they get
building, of
vetted
course.
ahead of time is what I'm asking.
They get fingerprinted. If they have contact with children, they do have to go through fingerprinting, and we do get notified if there's a problem. But it's not going to tell us, these systems, so there is some value for sure in a system like that. It does change the culture of the school. We're not saying we won't do that. We haven't moved to that point yet. We just now are putting in required appointments. We haven't even done that at this point. But it's not going to solve every problem that you think it's gonna solve, because it's not gonna tell us that somebody's been convicted of a crime.
Exactly.
So-
Nothing is gonna solve all the problems. I totally
Right.
get that. And what we're putting in place now, we're gonna have to tweak. I
Right.
totally get
Mhm.
that. And, you know, there's gonna be changes as we go through. I'm a very reasonable person. I completely agree with that. Do I wish that more had been done this summer? Do I wish that we were further along with the gates in the schools and the vestibules? I mean, I think it's really scary that at Tamacos School, once you get cleared by someone, a secretary who was just trained for a couple hours over the summer, to walk into the building, you've got free reign in that building. There is nobody right there to stop you and say, like, you know, you have to find your own way to the office, which I know will be clearly marked. But, I mean, you could be down in the art room, you could be in the gym in seconds without going all the way around to get to the office. And you cannot you cannot expect two secretaries to manage all of that while they're managing the phones and managing the principal schedule and managing everything else. So I'm so passionate about getting staff into the school that knows security.
I understand that, I really do, and I think you are being reasonable, but just continue your thought a little bit, okay? So, if you put one person in that building, is that one person always going to be where that person needs to see whatever is going on?
No, and I totally get that, but if that person is manning the front door at least and checking, I mean, you're relying on the custodians to go around and check every door and make sure that they're locked. which, I mean, custodians have a lot of different jobs, and honestly, they don't get paid all that much. So we're not giving any of these people pay raises, and we're adding on all of this extra burden to their day. I don't know why they would do it. I mean, if I'm a secretary in the school, I would be like, you know, this is too much. I don't want children's lives in my hands. I mean, it's a lot, and we're not giving them any more money. What is our incentive there to really have strong security? I mean, the secretaries at Tamaqua are fantastic. They love the kids. They will do their job, you know, as best they can. But there's a lot of demands on them. And, you know, I can't speak for any schools, but any other schools, but I'm sure that's, you know, the case everywhere else. So I feel like having a vestibule and having someone at the door there is like, should be top priority and should not wait until a referendum and whatever else we have to do. So tell me what I can do to help you get stronger security, and I will do it.
And I'm just gonna say, I mean, I appreciate everything that you said. A couple of things is, I know you mentioned, and a lot of residents have mentioned, the surplus that was advertised, for that lack of a better word. That is not the school board's money.
Right.
Okay, so that's, you know, two different sort of pots
Right. But can we
exist.
get that devoted, can we get some of that devoted to the school by going elsewhere? No?
Separate pots of money completely.
Right. So
But they can't say like, we're
The way
gonna,
the laws work, it's not up to
Right.
us, it's just not.
okay.
So from that standpoint, and you also brought up vestibules. I mean, that was brought up at the end of the year. I wish that we could have, you know, those things built and done in 3 months and so forth. But, you know, doing the plans, getting it past the state, finding the funding.
Right,
I'm sure
I
you
get that
understand
it
it
takes,
takes
I
quite a
get
bit
it,
of time.
yes, just, you know, doing my kitchen took
Right.
months. I completely get that.
So,
I
but we
just-
heard you guys, and,
Okay.
you know, and as Dana had mentioned, at the September 17th meeting, I believe is what you said, that George will be back again to discuss the plans that we have for the doors of the schools, because we do understand that each of the schools has different limitations, and Tamaqua isn't the only one. I mean, I only know the schools that my kids went to, and I know Franklin, you come in this way and you have to go that way to get to the office and so forth. But we really feel that we have trained the secretaries, and I think Dana and Dr. Dolan said that they really are on board to work with us and keep the schools safe and so forth.
I don't doubt that they're on board. I don't.
Right.
I think
No,
they're,
I
you know, they're
don't- I don't-
fantastic.
I'm
And I
just
think the
reiterating
teachers
that-
are and the principals are. I think they all are. But I
Right.
think you need somebody who's trained in this.
Right, and the problem is, and as Dr. Dolan, I think, mentioned, is the school resource officers, whether they're at the high school or at the middle school, they don't just sit at the front door. They have many other responsibilities, so they would not be a monitor to sit at the front door just to take IDs at that point in time. If that was something that we would go to, we would just pay basically another employee to run it through this system that you presented, but it still wouldn't be a you know, a police officer or whatever in reference to it. And
Well, then maybe it's two.
That's what a lot of corporations do.
okay, well, you gotta have to wait, and you have to come, I'm sorry, because it's just not the format that we have here. I mean, and you know what, I do believe, I know Dr. Dolan and Dana, and they will look into these things, and if it's something that benefits our district, we work to get it. And there is, you know, a differing opinion as to whether or not this system gives us anything more than what we're already doing. I mean, if it's just telling you, you know, telling me my name is Peggy Oster, giving my address, and can't tell you anything else about me, I don't know if that
Right.
tells us anything different than me handing your ID to the secretary and saying, I'm Peggy Oster, this is my address.
Right.
If it gives us more information and allows us to really control the people who come in, I'm sure it will be something that we will look at.
Okay,
So
I
your
appreciate
time.
that. Thank you.
And just one other comment, if I could make, I think one of the things, you know, what can we do, what can we ask of our parents to help with this process? The biggest thing we can ask you to do is not come to the school during the school day unless you have an appointment. And that's what we're leading with in terms of new procedures for the year. So, you know, we've had boxes outside some of the schools, and in some cases, people go inside anyway, because it's something, no, I really need to hand it to a person, I can't leave it in a box. Let's really try to adhere to these policies and not go in the door at all, and let's see how that goes. Sorry, go ahead, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Hi, Kim McKee, 925 Willow Grove Road. My daughter also is at Tamaqua, going to be a second grader, and I have 2 more coming up behind her. So on Stonegate, I was curious, you mentioned it's like $15,000 a contract. Is that per year?
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't seem like very much money. I pay for consultants for me personally, and I pay, you know, well over that, you know, probably 30, 40, 50 grand a year. For a district of our size, I would think that, have we looked into other consultants? Have we talked to other districts? Are we paying enough for consultants? How have we vetted Stonegate? Are they the best of the best? We worry about our sports programs. We make sure we have the best of the best. Are we paying enough? That doesn't seem like.
We have, there's not a whole lot of companies that do this that I know of. We have looked at other companies. I don't think there's a problem with what Stonegate does. They've given us very comprehensive assessment reports. It's a matter of the district making decisions based on how our community and how we want to allow access to our schools, as well as policies that are in place for access. So I don't think that there's a problem with what Stonegate is recommending. We haven't taken all of their recommendations because, like anything else, we have to develop priorities and go with priorities. So I don't see
So
that.
everyone keeps saying I think a lot, and just like a security guard at the schools. Say if every school had a security guard, an armed guard. You keep saying I think that wouldn't be practical, but have we looked into the cost of what that would be? Has anyone given us a,
$100,000 per position per year.
and is that feasible?
If we
Would
want to.
require pretty drastic cuts to programs in order to afford it, yeah.
So if,
Bigger class
if
size.
30 kids got killed at Tamaqua, would that be feasible, or would it, you know what I mean?
Right,
Like,
so if there were a panacea, and then you actually referenced this before, right? That we all wish there was one answer, there was one panacea. If we knew, if we put one person in a building, we wouldn't have a problem, or 30 children, as you point out, of course we would do it. That is not a guarantee. Occasionally, the person who is standing by the door has to go to the bathroom. Occasionally, the person has to go and have lunch. And it has been proven, if you read and if you study, and you might have, I don't know, but if you look at what has happened in the past, I wish that were the answer. I wish we have found, listening to everyone, not just our consultants, but the law enforcement and the state and the county. I wish they had come up with one thing that was going to tell me we could put this to bed.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
don't think it's one thing. I think it's a combination of a lot of
Exactly.
different things. So I think you take every precaution you can that's feasible.
Yes.
And so I guess my question is, how are we determining that that's not feasible, right? Maybe it is cut a program. I mean, everyone mentions the two schools that Parkland and people bring that up often, but what about all the other schools that it could have prevented? Maybe it will, maybe it won't, but I mean, just like I lock my doors at night, I have an alarm system. Is that, if someone wants to get in, they're gonna get in, right? We all get it, but it's a deterrent. It's just another layer. And so, you know, I want my kids alive, whether they're a great lacrosse player, I think I'd rather them be alive, right? And so Tamaqua was a scare. We keep saying we've trained our staffs. They're great, they're great, they're great. But something went wrong, and the training isn't new, so so that doesn't make me feel good, right? And what happens when a staff member makes a mistake? Like where are we at Tamaqua? Like, someone made a mistake. I don't know if we can talk about it, but that's a problem. So the training doesn't really make me sleep better at night. And again, like Stonegate, did we bid it out? Are we talking to other districts?
So I don't have all the answers to your questions, and I do understand them. I mean, yes, was that a scare? It absolutely was. And are we taking it seriously? Yes. And did we take security seriously before? Yes. And are we trying to learn? Absolutely. But I actually lost my train of thought after all of that intro.
We're talking to other districts though, aren't we?
And we have been talking to other districts. Oh, I know what I wanted to make clear. We would never skimp on security. You seem to think we're skimping on security because we like sports. Honestly, we wouldn't. I mean, we know what is the most
Then let's
important
get a
thing.
feasibility study and see
So
what
if,
it takes.
well, we have had studies actually to see what it should be, and I think, so from my point of view, if we thought that having one person in a building all day, but not really, because they have to go to the bathroom and they have to take lunch and all the rest of it, if I thought that was going to solve it, if that was the most effective thing to do, then we could have done that. But our research, our talking to law enforcement isn't that. We do have police presence in the schools regularly. They're not just walking around, they're giving us their guidance as to, you know what you really should pay attention to over here. You know, I noticed that this door or whatever. They do that regularly, right? And they come into our schools daily, right? They may not be standing there. I'll also tell you, I've worked in schools that have security guards. They don't have enough to do, they get bored. And you can talk to other people who are in similar situations and you can tell me. But if you have somebody and their whole thing is to sit by a door, they get bored. They start talking, they're not paying attention. I mean, I don't think, if that were the most effective thing to do.
So have you polled the community? Because again, like, it's a lot of I don't think. Have we talked to everyone? I mean,
So we could definitely poll the community. I have to point out one thing. It was only a handful of years ago when I wanted to add a school resource officer to this district that I was at public meetings and being yelled at, and it was yelling. You're not yelling here tonight, I appreciate that. But where I was being yelled at that I should not ask for a school resource officer in the high school. That was a handful of years ago, right? So if you were to poll the community, you would get many, many answers. And everyone's trying and everyone's concerned, but you would get many answers.
I know, I'm
in the
just looking at the
survey,
majority.
a
I mean, I go
poll like-
flying for work, right? I go on trains, I go into my building every day in the city, and it's a real hassle. But it's our world today.
Right, and I think if you ask the 9 of us, community members here at the table, taxpayers, would do, you know, the simple question, you know, are you willing to pay more money for there to be a security guard in the school? The inclination would say yes, but it's only valuable if you appreciate what that means. And I don't mean to make it about money, but when we talk about prioritizing, that has to be part of the conversation. You know, and so, you know, so if we do this, then it means this. It means class sizes of XYZ. It means that we're gonna have to eliminate these particular programs, AP classes at the high school.
I'm a banker, I get the budget.
So,
thing.
no, but
I
I'm
get
saying,
it.
so it's only really meaningful if that's part of the equation.
Yeah, I get it.
Because I think
get it.
it's very rare that we hear something, even a suggestion for a new class, a new proposal, that we're not like, that would be awesome. But at the end of the
I
day.
think this is critical though, I just don't.
I'm not
Yeah.
diminishing
Yeah.
the criticalness of it. I just think, I'm just trying to make a point, that the question in and of itself has no value to us unless we know what comes with it. And so what we're trying to do, like Dana and Dr. Dolan have said, is continually prioritize. And rather than spend $150,000 on a consultant, I'd quite honestly rather pay our very good consultant what we're paying them and sink that extra money into security upgrades in the buildings, which is what we've been doing.
Right, and I also think that, you know, I mean, I feel very strongly, met with Stonegate, you know, not to the level that Dr. Dolan and Dana have, but they do provide us a very good service. You know, they are security consultants to other districts and so forth.
How many do we know? I mean, are they really
I'm
that
sure
lot? Yeah.
I don't know the number off the top of my head, but a lot.
I mean,
But that being said, the one thing is they have not come to us and said, the answer to your problem is to put a security guard in the schools. That has not been.
There's gonna be
but-
no one answer.
But there is not gonna be one, that's true, there's not one, no one.
There's several.
Right, there's
Yeah.
several answers, but that wasn't even one of the answers that they gave to us. That's not even really highest on their radar as to what, and it may be on yours.
It's not just me, I mean, you go on
I
these,
think it's
and
parents in
it's
general.
parents in general, I mean, people, I mean, I'm telling you, I go into Penn Station every day, and I go into the Port Authority, and there's guns everywhere, and I will tell you, and there's security guards with armed, and
Right, but is that how you want your child to go to school every day?
I want my kid to be safe.
And I
so
want my
don't
children
them
to be
go
safe also.
fly on an airplane and take off their shoes and do all this and that, but it doesn't matter, it's just,
Right.
it's what the world we live in. I wish that they didn't, right?
Right.
I wish I didn't have to lock my car, because that would be better if I didn't, but that's just not,
Right.
it's a
But-
shame.
But as we said, I mean, we've discussed with our consultants, we've discussed with other districts. You know, we really have done our homework. And when you talk about the cost of the consultant, I've had a couple of people reach out to me, and the people who want to do business with us aren't consultants, but rather salespeople, because they're going to sell us a package that's better than somebody else's package. But that being said, Stonegate does all of that. They vet the different packages to say different options and so forth, because they have no financial liability.
I wanna be
in that.
dealing with a business that's making money, and that's, I mean, $15,000 is not a lot of money, but I hear you, it's just, And then I guess the last thing for me, I mean, well, two things, the large events, I mean, at the very least, at the evenings, why can't we do it, you know, I know you can't, it's not feasible, obviously, to check people in, but having one armed guard at these events, like, that's not a full day, is there any way to do that, or some kind
Once
of
again, I
reason?
think it's something, as Gretchen said, we have to look at the cost versus the benefit sort of scenario.
And,
I
well,
mean,
yeah, it
because
depends on
it's
whether
a-
it's a school event. If it's not a
Right.
school event,
Right, sure.
then
Right.
that, whatever that third-party organization, if they wanna bear the associated costs, and that's
Right,
on
they can
them,
do-
but.
Right. And we have talked to the chief about some events, it might be appropriate. Well, we already do ask the police to come in, or we pay the police to come in for some events. I don't think it's going to be every event where, you know, we have the school open at night, but we certainly have been talking about that, both to the chief
Big
and among the
events at
administrators.
the very least.
Say again?
At big events at the very least, you know, high-profile events. And then the last thing, I mean, the voting, I know I have a brother that was in the Howell School District, his family, they shut down voting in the schools. And then where I grew up down the shore, the schools were closed during voting. So, those just seem very simple. I mean,
Yeah, that's an ongoing conversation among the board.
I mean, that's 20 years ago. or
Yeah,
20
we
years
take
ago.
that, right, you're right, I mean,
But why,
that's,
that's so simple, right? Just close the school a day. I mean, that just seems like,
it,
Well,
it seems simple.
It's more than one day also, right?
right, I'm just saying, it's a few days,
This
like.
year it would be 3 days, so then you'd have to, I'm not saying we wouldn't do it, but what that would mean would be, we would be adding days on to the end of the year. It's about the only place to do it.
And it also makes the election week in November useless with the teachers' convention. So
Yeah.
you'd have school on Monday and Wednesday and nothing else that week.
Yeah.
But again, it's like convenience versus safety.
Well, it's funny, cause when we push the calendar forward, we get, yeah, I mean, it's just, so then we have a significant portion of our parent population of kids going to camp, and then and so that conflicts with when they have to leave for camp. It just means we have to adjust the
Yeah.
schedule, so I appreciate it looks simple, it's just not as simple, but I can
It would be
promise you
simple
that
if
it's an
30
ongoing
kids died at
conversation.
Tamaqua, it would have been simple. Now it's not, because it was just a scare, but I think it would be different.
We've been having that conversation for years, so
But it is
I
also,
disagree.
it is also worth noting that the incident in Tamaqua was after school, and it was a wake-up call to all the other 564 districts in the state. Their security protocols are probably, I don't wanna say perfect, but very good during the school day. But everybody has had a lapse in the immediate after-school hours, because the schools are open to everybody.
But that's not really, I mean.
So every
Yeah.
district in the state had to reevaluate their protocols after what happened at Tamaqua.
My daughter was at Tamaqua, and that was after school, but people would go in and out. It wasn't like very strict. I mean, you know, during the day, people hold the door open for people. It wasn't,
Yeah.
people would buzz me in. I didn't even know I was supposed to check into the office for a while. So it's not perfect during the day either.
Well, we really, really have focused on tightening that up. And if you find the same thing, please reach out to me, because that is so important. You know, I mean, parents can help with the part about not opening the door, but the rest of it really, most of the rest of it is ours. You know, you should know that, it should be clear, and it should be done, and as Dana Sullivan said, and if the secretaries are busy, well, then they need to pause, and people are gonna have to wait a little bit, because we can't rush this. So if that happens, I mean, for anybody here, if we're not following it, I mean, you can tell your principal if you want, or if not, please tell me, because we need to make sure that it is being done correctly. It is vital.
Yeah, I think it
you know.
will be now. I hope. Anyway, thank you.
Dana, 22 school districts. It's Stonegate.
22.
I thought you said 25.
Alicia Griffey Vera, you know where I live. So solutions, right? Off the cuff, I think Wilson has about 400 children, right? So $100,000, what is that, 250 per child? I think most parents in this town would be willing to foot that bill. Is it something that we probably should pose to parents? I think so. I mean, is this something that parents have to get a petition going, present it to you, present it to the mayor? Maybe that's what we should do. Or, you know, like I said, I know Clark has a security guard. I know Scotch Plains has security guards. We just seem so out of step with everybody around us. So I'm asking, would a petition, is that something you'd like to see, numbers, how many people would be supportive of it?
I'm not sure a petition would tell us that. It would tell us the numbers of people who signed the petition, but I'm not sure it would give us an answer. People can always write petitions if they want to. I don't think it's the mayor's responsibility. The mayor runs the town. The mayor works with the police department, and we work with them. But I don't think it's her responsibility. I think it's the school.
Because just in my view of how something like this would work, right? You have a security guard who's at the door. It is their job to be at the door. The SROs that go around to each school, when that person comes in, that's when the security guard gets to take his break, when he gets to go to the bathroom.
Right.
Again, this is what corporations, everybody who's working, you have an ID card, you get buzzed in. The doors of a corporation are never left unattended. Granted, they have a different bottom line that they're working with, right? And if this person's bored, no one said, if they're getting paid and if they're incentivized, if they will lose their job, some people do want to work hard. Find the right people. Again, off the cuff, I'm thinking retired police officers would be ideal for this. Retired fire department, ideal.
Right.
So I'm thinking like maybe parents, like this will be our next step, saying we want security guards. Because right now, it's in the middle school, it's in the high school, so why are they needed in those environments and not in the
SROs at the
elementary?
high school and the elementary school are not stationed at the front door.
Middle school.
And
the
no
middle school.
security guards. So
Right.
school resource officers receive additional training in addition to all their training
Right.
as a police
Okay.
officer. And part of it is they are working to try to develop the culture in the school so that that kids who may have problems or who are struggling with something develop a relationship and will go to them. So that they go into the health classes and the law classes and they supplement it. Their role is very different. Now, occasionally, do we have them and ask them to help us out to watch
Right.
something because it's a big event or something? Occasionally, yes, we absolutely
Okay.
do. And they also come to us and say, I've been hearing that the students are going to whatever, and then in that role, they're more like a police officer. But a
Right.
school resource officer really is very, very different. It really, because you're trying to work with the community and develop a culture of the students and the staff where if there's somebody is in trouble, that people are paying attention and we're providing support to that person. Right? So their role really is different.
Okay,
They're
so
not,
then we are talking about security guards. So if parents in the town signed petitions saying, hey, we think this is necessary, would that give the board reason to go back and reevaluate?
So let's talk practicalities. We have 10 schools where children are every day. $100,000, is that?
Yeah, so $1 million.
So,
but
Dana, how large is our budget?
So it's 106 million or so.
All right, so we'd have to either cut $1 million from the budget, or we'd have
Or
to
you-
exceed the 2% cap that we're permitted
Right.
to exceed every
Right.
year,
Which
which
you
would
would
then
go out to
require
the
us to put it
voters.
on the ballot and
Correct.
go out to a vote.
Correct.
But
Right.
then, practicality, if we're gonna run down this road, which of the 27 doors at the high school do you put the guard at?
I
Which
don't
of
know.
the 12 at Edison? Which of the 6 at Tamaulipas?
So the other
and
thing, the
Washington?
two you'd have to
Well,
figure out
the
is.
door where visitors the door that visitors have to go through to get in.
But first off, you don't
Because
want
we're saying the doors are locked, people can't get in, right? We're already saying that. But visitors who book an appointment in 24 hours in advance, there's gonna be one door they could go in, right? So that one door where someone who's not usually there could go in, that's where you put the person.
Right, but you don't want to vet them inside. You want to vet them while they're still outside. So we'd have to.
Right,
We'd have
right.
to
So we're
probably-
saying we've already
we'd have
done
to-
that, right?
we-
We're
we'd-
saying you have to make your appointment 24 hours in advance.
No, I'm talking about when the person arrives.
Right.
We don't want to let them in.
Right.
And have the security guard
Right.
interacting with them in the building. They
Right.
have to be
But
interactive while they're still outside.
we've already said we have the cameras to cover that, right? Cameras, intercom, we already have
Right,
that.
so
So
the
it's
security guard would be
the
in the
next
main
step.
office then.
All right, we don't need to do
So-
the job
But
description
just
today.
so
or we're gonna be here all night.
Just so we're clear,
right? So-
there's other issues as far as you would have to determine, what do you mean by a security guard? Do you mean an armed person? There is different guidance from different groups that you wouldn't want retired police officers armed in buildings because they don't have the same training that on-duty police officers have. So those are all like, none of it's insurmountable. I mean, you could certainly come to answers with these things, but these are all discussions you would have to have before you put it out to a separate proposal as to what do we mean by a security guard? Are we talking about somebody who's armed?
Right.
And there, as Dr. Dolan mentioned, there were a number of people that weren't happy about having on-duty police officers that were armed. I would imagine there would be a fair number of people that would not be happy about people that are not police officers being armed in schools.
So I just want to, I mean, I appreciate everybody's thoughts and comments, and my email is always available for you to share your thoughts and comments with me. I think that our administrative staff has done a great job to tighten up security, train our staff going into the new school year. Do we have all the answers? No, we don't have all the answers about everything, because everything is always changing. So I am going to ask all of the board members, when we get further down to our liaison reports, each one of us represents a school, is a liaison to one of the schools, to keep in contact with your PTOs and so forth. And if there's thoughts and feedback that you want us to know about, please, that's what these people are here for. They're to come back and give us your thoughts and for us to know what's going on the ground running and so forth. Do I think that if you put a petition together, as Dr. Dolan said, that's not really telling us the majority of people want something. It's telling us that the people that you had signed the petition are saying yes. So what I'd like to see is, I think that we've really strengthened the security protocols at the schools, working with other districts, working with our consultants, and working with our staff that have been, loyal employees for many years. So I ask you to go back, ask your parents to follow those procedures. I mean, leaving a door open for somebody is really something you guys have to really put in place, because it's also in our nature to open the door for the person behind you. So you have to stop and say, I can't be polite any longer. I have to close that door in your face and tell you you have to, talk to the secretaries. These are things that we have to change in our culture, and, we go forward from there. So, as I said, on the September 17th meeting, we'll be discussing with George the renovations to the vestibules and so forth. Let's see how the beginning of the school year starts. Let's follow the protocol. Let's have all of our administration and our staff members follow the protocol. And we're going to be back here again in 2 weeks.
Wonderful.
To be able to work back on that. But, and as I said, my email is there. Please feel free to reach out to me with any thoughts and so forth. And, I can be the voice through to the administrative staff here.
Great, thank you. Thank you for your time, everyone.
I think there's 691 districts, so that's only 3% from representing 22. Not very.
So most districts don't use consulting services, so that's why, there's very few districts have somebody that's a consultant, and very few districts do the training that we do through them.
Stonegate also
They
does
do.
Rutgers, Kane, Ryder,
Yeah.
the Union County Prosecutor's Office.
Atlantic Health Systems.
Yeah,
other
all the
places.
hospitals
Yeah.
in North Jersey.
Yeah. I don't think that there's anything wrong with Stonegate. They've provided an amazing service to us. The fact that they don't overcharge us is a good thing, in my opinion. But there's no deficiency in their service. If there were, I certainly wouldn't work with them. There would be no reason for me to continue working with them, so I don't think that's an issue.
Okay. Once again, I do thank you, and I thank you for coming out and giving your opinions and our thoughts, and we will take them to heart. We spend a lot of time talking, so.
We actually have a second report tonight.
Yes, we do.
We have certainly been talking about full-day kindergarten, and we've reached out to the public before, and so we have an update on the recent work, and I'll turn it over to Dana again tonight.
So as you know, we've talked extensively about full-day K, and our enrollment right now in kindergarten is about 210 or so half-day Ks. And our first grade enrollment is somewhere around 450. So we would have to assume that if we implemented full-day K, our enrollment for full-day K would be somewhere around 400, 450. Maybe not in year one as people transitioned, but very soon after, people would say, why am I paying for full-day K when I can go public schools? So we would, looking at all of our facilities, we did an extensive review of all of our facilities to see where we could put additions, because we know we don't have space as our schools currently are configured. So George has looked at every school. We narrowed down to Jefferson and Wilson and Washington, I'm sorry. So George is here tonight to show the board what the plans are. We are asking you tonight to approve applications to submit to the state of New Jersey for them to start the process. That's one piece of it. The other piece of it, the critical piece of it would be the funding piece. So the board would have to approve a referendum. We would be thinking March would make the most sense in order to have this open for September 2022. So the board, sometime around the end of this late fall, you would have to approve a referendum. So if you do approve these resolutions tonight, you're only approving submissions to the state, but they don't go anywhere without the funding. So you're not bound to anything by approving the applications, it just starts the process. And if we don't get that process started soon, we will not get it done in time for a March referendum because how long it takes the state to review. So and George has more of that timeline in his presentation, but, so George Duthie is from Freytech V's, Hopkins and Duthie are architects, and he's gonna go through this presentation.
Dr. Dillon, will both of these be on the website? Both the security presentation and this will be posted?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great, thanks.
Good evening again, everyone. Glad to be here. Everyone here okay?
Yeah.
So I don't have my pointer tonight, but, wrong way, let's try this. So what is the purpose of this project, right? So the purpose of the project is to construct additions at Jefferson and Washington Elementary Schools, south side of town, north side of town, to accommodate additional classrooms and other spaces needed for expansion to full-day kindergarten, okay? As Dana said earlier, the district is proposing to do a March 2020, it'll be March 10th, 2020, referendum question to ask the voters to approve the project if they're so inclined, okay? The project, the final decision, I'll say it again, the final decision to move forward with this project will be made by the voters of Westfield who turn out to vote for the referendum in March, proposed for March of 2020, okay? Now, if the referendum is approved, how that process works is the district will sell bonds, okay? And that is how the project will be funded through the sale of the bonds. The taxpayers will pay the debt on that bond referendum, usually for a period of 20 years. We do expect to get some money from the state for this project because expansion to a full-day kindergarten program is an eligible project from the point of view of the New Jersey Department of Education.
Any idea how much?
We're gonna get to that, yeah. I have a slide with all the costs and everything, sure.
Jumping
Oh.
ahead.
So why is the Board of Education doing this? The citizens of Westfield have asked the Board of Education to consider an expansion to full-day kindergarten. The board reviewed the request and determined that there was enough interest to explore the ideas, okay? So as a result, there was a utilization study done in 2017, which looked at all of the lower grade level buildings in the district, including Lincoln School, and we even looked at this building. We looked at the Board of Education building as well to see if there was enough space to accommodate this expansion, and there is not. So, that being said, there would have to be new construction done because we need to accommodate somewhere between 420 and 440 kindergarten students. And there was a study done looking at the demographics, looking at the enrollments, and that's how it was determined, based on, the entering first grade numbers, for example, what the size of that kindergarten class would look like, okay? So, what does the project include? It includes 9 kindergarten classrooms with self-contained toilet rooms at both Jefferson and Washington Elementary School. There will be some what we call flex classrooms. They'll have the ability to be split in half, so you can put some resource and special ed pull-out classes and resource classrooms into some of those spaces as well, because they're a necessary part of having additional classrooms. You have to have those pull-out spaces. There'll be storage and mechanical rooms, faculty toilet rooms, things like that, obviously corridors and those types of spaces, okay? So it's a kindergarten classroom and support space project. Jefferson Elementary School. So after looking at the site, it's been evaluated as well by civil engineer to determine the best location is basically next to the newer addition of Jefferson School on the Summit Avenue side of the building, okay? This gives you some idea, if you look at the aerial, of what that would look like. About 11,500 square feet approximately, okay? And this just gives you an idea of what the plan would look like. It's basically parallel to the other addition on the building, and the area in gray shows the footprint, okay? And this is, by the way, a conceptual plan. It's a schematic plan. It is not the final design. It is not even necessarily what the plan will look like when the building's completed. This is just basic information that we need to put together. We know kindergarten classrooms are 950 square feet. So we just put together a plan so we can send it to the Department of Education. There will be a second process and probably a third process for the actual design when that takes place. Likewise, Washington School. This addition is proposed to be built essentially where the existing playground is. So obviously, there'll be a relocation of a playground in this project. We are not planning to be on top of the walking path or the field in the middle of the walking path at Washington School. We think we can fit this addition right by St. Mark's, without interfering with the walking path or the field. Okay? Approximately, again, 11,500 square feet. Both footprints are a little bit different because there's a little more connecting space that we have to construct. So Washington, this is what the addition will look like, again in gray. Basically added on to the addition that was built on Washington some years ago, you may remember, back in 1996 or whenever it was. We're just basically going to be adding on to that addition, and we'll be constructing those 9 classrooms, again, including the flex space, okay? Typical classroom, kindergarten classroom layout. This is just informational purposes, a couple of different layouts. Estimated costs. So construction costs have been going up. We have to anticipate that. We looked at the construction of Jefferson School, estimating it at about $5.85 million, just under 5.9. Washington, just over $6 million. Why? Because first of all, Washington, we have to move that playground, right? And there are some other individual variations in terms of utilities and electrical services and things like that from one building to the other, which have been looked at already in the design. So about $11.86 million, just under $12 million for these 2 schools.
Does that include furniture and?
Yes.
It does.
Total project cost, just under $12 million.
Is that the soft costs?
Includes construction costs and soft costs. It also includes furniture and fit out. I mean, there's a lot of ancillary costs in schools, cameras for security, door access controls, communication systems, right? There are obviously utilities we have to take into consideration. And of course, there's contingency funds, there's fees, there's regulatory agencies, utility costs, all those types of things. So yes, they're all built into the cost of the project.
And don't forget, just, I know the board knows this, but it's worth repeating, this is only building the facility.
That's right.
And then we would have staffing and other recurring costs that would have to go in the operating budget as part of a separate proposal and increase the operating budget annually.
And do you know roughly what the range would be for that?
About 3 million in today's dollars, but by 2022, that would be higher.
Literally between $15 million.
Yes.
So,
This is, of course, this is a one-time expense, where the 3 million would grow every year and be an expense
Oh,
every
right,
year.
okay.
Right, and because this is paid off over a much longer period of time.
Right, so
This
these
actually,
would be
although-
paid over,
yeah.
right, these would be paid over like 30 years. So in, the average homeowner would probably see like $100 increase because of this, but the operating budget would be annual, so that would go up like $300 to $400, and that would be an annual with increases because obviously costs go up every year.
So 500 increase
In year 1, yeah,
per
roughly.
household,
Roughly, that's really rough numbers at
Yeah.
this point, but
times 20 years,
30.
times 30.
Well,
Well,
times
well,
forever.
Forever for the
Forever.
operating
Forever.
budget,
Right.
this part is 30 years.
And the option now is to have the wrap for $400 a month for the 1 year that your child is in kindergarten, which would be $4,000 one time per child for only households that have a child in the full-day program.
That are able to get into the program.
Right, but for the last 2 years, the program was available for everyone as well, so.
We can agree to disagree, yes.
Just want to make it available without charging more than the current options available to parents.
so some notes about the project cost estimate. An allowance for increasing construction costs. We have been seeing a great deal of pressure on rising construction costs. We've been seeing a lot of pressure with that. Passage of the 2020 referendum, like we don't want to wait much longer than that because that may cause the prices to go up even further. And of course, it does include all of the anticipated costs related to the construction of the buildings. Okay? So what is the schedule? those are the notes for the estimates, sorry. So, project,
I think you skipped one.
is the other one. Whoops. No, okay, well, we need, the Board of Education. What will happen, just to describe the process a little bit, is the project will be submitted to the Department of Education for approval. Takes about 90 days. We also have to amend the long-range facility plan. That's part of the process as well. The board will receive letters from the state. They'll have to write the referendum question and approve that. I think there's a meeting scheduled for December 3rd, 2019. It would be at that December 3rd meeting. We would hope to have that approval. Basically, that tells the county you're going to conduct this election and gives them the form of the question. There would be an acceptance of the letter that the state gives you. They give you approval letters. The letters tell you, approve the cost of the project that you're proposing, and also will tell you the amount of money that the state may give you for the project. And that would have to be done by around January 21st, January 20th, in order to get onto the ballot in time. So the referendum date would be March 10th, 2020. And then jump into this slide. October 15th, 2020, approximately, we go out to bid. We award the project. It takes about 2 months to get the project bid and awarded. In December, we'll start construction in March, because we can't really start construction in December. It's not a very good month to start construction. But there's a lot of things we can do between December and March in procurement and getting permits and things like that. And then we would hope to complete by the end of July of 2022, in time for the new school year. So schedule assumes passage of the referendum in March of 2020, reasonable agency review times, right? A reasonable timeline for approvals and constructions. But we have to remember it's construction, to plan for contingencies. Things can go wrong sometimes. Unforeseen and uncontrollable issues, right? So we try to take those into account in schedules as much as we can.
So George, the estimates are, just to piggyback off of Ken's question from before,
Yeah.
Have you anticipated what state aid we might get, or is this the whole kit and caboodle, and then we just sell less bonds if we get state aid?
You'll bond the full amount, and you'll receive your debt service aid on your payments
Right.
each
I
month.
said it wrong.
So,
That's what I meant, yeah.
the answer is, you'll bond the 11.86 million,
Right.
and then typically state aid on new construction, it's not like renovations where you get 40, it'll probably be somewhere around 10%. I'm guessing, right now, but I'm gonna guess it's gonna be around 10%, maybe $1 million.
Okay.
Somewhere in that vicinity.
It also depends on whether or not there's an expansion of the current dollars that are available for school construction through the SDA, School Development Authority. Because right now
They're in
there's
trouble, yeah.
virtually
There's none.
no money left.
No.
So there'll probably be a state question within the next year that'll expand maybe another $1 billion to $2 billion put into school construction.
Well, once you go forward with the referendum, you're not gonna
They're
be
not gonna be
eligible
able to
for the
get it.
SDA
Right.
money, so
Right.
that would
If it's
go
not
off,
there.
that would go off the table at that
Mm.
point. But, so what would happen is if your payback of the bonds was $1 million a year and they were funding 100,000, you would just raise the 900 instead of the million
Right.
every year.
Right.
Okay. And then, Dana, how much control do we have over the form of question that the board approves on December 3rd?
Well, you have, it's very legally, you have to.
But yeah,
In what way?
You say that, but I remember we've gotten dinged on language that we've tried to use before, because the form of question should really reflect that, right, that if the community approves the referendum, for us to go to sell bonds, to do the facilities project, that there will be, can we
You
make
cannot
reference
do
to a
that.
potential future?
No.
No.
You cannot do that,
So-
so you would be doing this you would do this as one question, so the two of them would either get approved or not get approved together. But if they do get approved, you would still have the issue of, in November of 2021, you would have to put, so that would be your 2021 budget. You would put a separate proposal in for the operating costs. So that would be up for the voters in November of '21. Now, construction would already be underway, because you'd already have started construction. So if that separate proposal didn't get approved, you now would have two buildings with no money to staff them.
Right, I kind of
Right.
knew
Could we
the
put
answer,
that in
but
the-
that's something we're gonna have to
Right.
talk
We can put
about.
in the
If-
timeline.
Right.
Can we put it
A
in
lot.
the explanation statement that goes along with the question?
you might be able to put it in there as,
Brendan,
but it's
who
not
reads
gonna do
those
anything
things?
for you legally, other
You
than
can-
tell
You can walk
people.
door to door and talk to every single voter, and half the people still aren't gonna pay attention to it.
You could, I mean, we certainly would talk to the attorneys and we could put all kinds of wording in there that we think may explain it to people. But even if people understand, I think the risk that you run is you don't know what happens, whether the economy tanks or whatever, you know, what happens to tax laws or anything else from March 2020 to November 21 that changes people's view on, you know, they may think they would vote yes on the separate proposal in March and then change their mind a year and a half later. So that's the risk we run. We have been talking to legislators to see if they could help us because we are kind of unique in this situation. And we may have some relief in that way, but we don't have anything at this point.
So all we're voting on tonight is approving you submitting the plans to New Jersey, correct?
Correct.
Correct, but we will have December 3rd is gonna come up awfully quick, so we are gonna. Labor Day came up awfully quick.
But don't forget, that's if you want a March referendum. There are schools that submit these documents that stay in the system for a year or longer,
Right,
that
right.
decide to push the bond referendum question to a date further down the road.
Right, so we backed into March
Correct.
based on September 2022, because I don't think you're gonna open this mid-year. That seemed kind of, I don't know how we would do that. So if you want to push it to September 23, then that would give you to March 2021.
Well, that's my question, is we're looking at a March off-cycle election, which generally gets limited amount of people to attend, versus holding this at a November election. Now, I'm looking at the construction timeline, it wouldn't work from starting construction until we have but if you held a November 2020
2020?
referendum, would we still have enough time if we wanted to start in 2023 to then have a secondary off-cycle vote to get the approval for the non-construction costs?
The operating.
You're
The
still-
operating
cost has to
cost.
happen.
Your operating, it's
So we
still
have to
gonna
wait
go
another
in-
year.
Yeah, it's still gonna go, it can't
And
go
can we
that
do the
year.
operating costs and the referendum on the same year, where one's a contingency if the referendum passes?
You
No.
can't, because the operating budget, if you can only do it a year in advance. Because what happens is, once you
Okay.
raise that money through taxes, it either has to be used in the next budget, or it has to be used for tax relief. So you have to do it the year before you need it, and you can't do the referendum the year before you need it, because you don't have enough time for construction and all the bidding and all that kind of stuff. So there's no way that we can see that you can tie these two together, which is the only way that makes sense to do two different budgets, but there's no way that they can be tied together.
At this point.
At
Right.
this point.
Being
At
the
this point.
optimist in the room, we have been talking to the legislators.
Right.
And
Right.
we're hoping that something can happen there.
Right.
And the bill that Bramnick introduced, or sent to us as a draft, was introduced in the Senate by with similar language. So there's movement in both houses to try and accomplish something similar.
Oh, good.
Right, but that doesn't change the cost to the district. All
Right.
that does is allows us
To have one vote.
to have one vote. If
Potentially,
the
right.
community decided to vote and approve full-day kindergarten and accept the costs associated with it, we would not have to go out and ask for an increase to the 2% cap for the operating budget for the year the school would open. So the cost would still be the construction cost plus the increase to our operating budget. It doesn't help us there, but it does make it a lot more sensible to try and put
And
forth.
transparent to explain.
Well, it
Yes.
takes away the
The
Uncertainty.
mystery.
And the uncertainty.
of
uncertainty.
having two buildings with nobody
Yes.
staffing them.
Right,
But yes, the cost would still be there.
right.
Or the argument that we're trying to force through an issue now the construction's half done. Of course, the voters are gonna approve it.
But to Gretchen's point too. you
I mean,
have to
that would be an
careful.
argument. I don't know if it's true,
But to Gretchen's point, you have to be careful, because there was a district in Bergen County that had a problem with the wording, and they have to go out to another vote if they're going to, and I'm not even sure if they're gonna bother going out again. But the wording is very important.
Well, McManaman in Scotland would
Yes.
do our wording, and they're the experts in.
What's gonna happen to Lincoln School?
Will
remain.
No,
remain.
it'll still be fully utilized.
Mhm.
Yeah. You have your a lot of your special education programs in that building,
Oh,
so.
okay.
yeah,
And,
you'll use
and
that.
some
And
kindergarten.
kindergarten as well.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
where your kindergarten programs
Yeah.
are, but
Yeah.
they would remain.
Oh, there'll still
Yeah.
be kindergarten there
Oh,
as
sure.
well?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Mhm.
There
Well,
needs
it's
to be.
Three locations.
Three locations,
We're
okay.
we're not gonna make it a fourth Southside Elementary School, if that's what you're getting at.
No, no, I didn't know I didn't know what the plans were. I didn't realize we're keeping kindergarten in 3 places now, okay,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. This is in addition to Lincoln. I should have made that clear. It's in addition to Lincoln.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, George.
Thank you, George.
Thank you, George.
Okay. I'd like the board to consider the minutes of the board meeting held on August 15th, 2019.
Second.
Rob, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I abstain.
I abstain as well, Dana.
Yes, Mr. Good Meeting.
I know. Another quick one, right?
Personnel, Amy.
I would like the board to consider items 1 through 31. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Kent. Dr. Dolan, I believe that, no?
No.
Okay, all right. So, items 1 through 31.
Mike Beelan,
Yes.
Kent Diamond,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Rob Garrison,
Yes.
Gretchen Olig,
Yes, although I abstain from item 27.
Tara Porto,
Yes.
Peggy Astor,
Yes.
Amy Root.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Facilities, do you have any updates for us, Gretchen?
I'm going to ask Dana if she has any updates. We do have a facilities committee meeting next Friday at 8 a.m., at which time we'll be,
Yes.
obviously, talking to George again about the potential entryway renovations
Correct.
for the schools. But can you give us an update on the summer projects and Kaler and
Yes.
everything else?
So, Kaler, we are laying the track. Please, 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 do not go on the track. We do have the area secured, but this is critical time because it needs to cure. So we can't have anybody get in there and step on it at all. But they are moving along. They actually made a lot of progress today. So we should be fine for opening day. The facility is gonna be beautiful. It's really coming along. It's almost completely done. It's really beautiful. So opening day is September 14th, and we should be fine. The high school, so we have the bathrooms at the high school. They will be done by the end of this week. The TV studio, as I've mentioned numerous times, is not scheduled to be done until late October. So that is coming along. It's actually starting to shape up. It looks nice. The door project, they've actually done quite a bit at the high school as far as replacing the doors. After Friday, they will start working at night. They've been working during the day all summer. Now they will start working on second shift hours, so they'll be there at 3 o'clock. Moving to the middle schools, the lobbies at both Edison and Roosevelt are not complete. I don't think they'll be 100% complete by next week based on how they look, although from today, from last Thursday, they look considerably better than they were. We'll have no issues with opening school, but we may have some work to finish up there, nothing extensive. The bathrooms at the middle schools look beautiful. They will be done by the end of this year. I do hope Marianne has some before and after shots of those bathrooms, because they're really something else. And our hardworking custodians, many of them in those buildings will be working over the weekend to just last minute cleaning. We tried our best to avoid having them to do that because they really do want to enjoy a weekend, but unfortunately, some of them will have to come in. But the schools will all be in great shape for next week. The generators are all in and running. The Volt servers are not yet. We are still working on those. So what that means is, in layman's terms, the things that are hooked up, the electrical things that are hooked up directly to the generator are working if we lose power, but the items that are gonna go through the digital electricity that's not hooked up yet. So that's like, for instance, lights in the library that are DE lights, they would not be hooked up yet because they'll go through the Volt server. But emergency lights in like the multi-purpose rooms, heat, which we don't need, in the multi-purpose rooms and things like that are hooked automatic to the generator itself. That's all up and working already.
Floor McKinley.
I'll just go back to the generators before you move on to, Are the enclosures in, or are they still open to?
No, the fences are not up
Fences.
yet. No, they are not. The
McKinley floor?
McKinley floor. So they're working on this week leveling, so we went all the way down to the subfloor. We made repairs there where we had to make repairs. They're now putting leveling material. Luckily, we did not have to put concrete. If you remember back in the beginning of this process, there was some talk that we might have to put concrete as a leveler, which requires like a 30-day curing time before the floor could go down. We didn't have to do that. So they are working on putting the leveling down. That takes, I think, about 8 days. Our holdup now is getting the new floor installed. There's not a long lead time on the floor itself, but the installers are all busy. So we're hoping that as soon as they should be finishing up projects now that they've been working on over the summer, and we're hoping maybe as soon as school starts, they can start actually laying the floor soon after that. McKinley does have plans. They know that they're not going to have their multi-purpose room, so they will be outside when the weather permits. Their PTO is looking at getting some big tents temporarily so that kids can eat lunch out there on nice days. And Mark Buno has been working on alternate solutions for gym and whatnot.
We figured out the source of the water?
Yes, and that's been taken care of. We think a significant portion of these expenses will be covered by insurance.
I was just gonna ask if homeowners covered us.
Not homeowners.
Not homeowners. School owners, definitely.
But we have numerous different insurance companies have a piece of this, so we've been in contact with them throughout the whole project. So they will, I don't know yet how much they'll cover, but I think it should be a substantial amount that will be covered.
That's good.
I'm sure I forgot another big project, but it's escaping me right now. But the gist of it is, schools will be open. We have no issues as far as opening school next week. The buildings that are not under construction right now look beautiful. The parts of the buildings that are not under construction look beautiful. And by Tuesday, everything will be perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah, going back to the doors, the fact that the contractor has to continue working into the fall and working second shift, obviously there's a cost differential there. Is that on the contractor for not meeting the performance deadline, or is it on us for?
That's on him.
Okay.
If we had caused a delay, it would be on us. So there are times that things might come up or whatever, and we might say, no, don't do that because we don't want to cause a delay. And if there's something happens, whatever. If we cause them to stop work for some reason, for instance, if they were there and we told them you couldn't work for a week because we need to use the facility, that would be on us.
Or if it was an outdoor project and we told them to work 24 hours a day to get done by a certain date.
Right. This, I believe the door project, we knew they couldn't finish in the summer, so we put October as a completion date with the understanding that they had to work night in order to do that. But so there'd be no additional cost to that.
Okay. And, sorry, just to reiterate one more time. So although the turf has been in place for a little while at the stadium, and it looks very appealing, and it looks like it's done, it's not done.
Correct.
And we are now entering a very critical phase where if we have people tiptoeing around on the newly installed track, they will mess it up.
Yeah.
So please refrain
And that will be
from
on
checking it
us
out.
if that happens. That will be on us. If people take down fencing or go do something like that, that will be on us to fix if we want to fix, or we will have somebody's footprints in there forever.
Yeah.
And
And we
it's
had
not-
both of that the last time.
And it's not just the track, it's also on either side near the,
End zones.
yeah.
So just stay out.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely stay out. This is
Yes.
just too important. We've worked too hard. Kayla's gonna be
Yes.
gorgeous, but stay out and make sure you let everybody you know
Yes.
has to stay
Yes.
out.
And it's only for a
Yes.
couple weeks.
Yes.
It's an 8-foot fence.
And there's
Okay.
clear signs, right?
Yes.
Somehow
Okay.
the signs all were stolen, but new signs are going up.
Okay.
There were signs there before.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was going to mention that, and, we welcome everybody to use the track and the field and the facilities and so forth, but not
Not
until
yet.
they're complete.
Yeah.
And, it's better for you, it's better for us, it's better for the whole community. So, please pass along the information to your friends and anybody who happens to use those fields that they are off limits right now.
Yes.
So, So thank you, Dana, thank you, Dr. Dolan, thank you for all your hard work over the summer. I'm sure the schools will look great, and the kids will be excited to come back next week. And
You promise?
I'm letting them know they're going to be excited to come back. And the schools will look wonderful for everybody, so thank you very much. Long-range planning, Amy.
I have no report for tonight, but we do need to get a time on the calendar. I think we're going to become a lot less ad hoc and a lot more regular this fall, but we do need to get it going. So on September 17th, I hope to be able to say a little bit more about that.
Great. Okay. Policies, Brendan.
Yes. I ask the board to approve policy item number 1.
Second.
Thank you, Ken. This is to approve for second reading policies 7434, 7435, 8500, 8630, and 8830. We approved those for first reading 6 meetings ago. I went back and checked on June 11th. So now it's our first regular board meeting of the year. Ask the board to approve for second reading. Dana?
Mike Beelan,
Yes.
Ken Diamond,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Robert Garrison,
Yes.
Gretchen Oleg,
Yes.
Tara Porto,
Yes.
Peggy Astor,
Yes,
Amy Root.
Yes.
that's it.
That's it.
Okay. Amy, you have curriculum.
I do. I would like the board to consider items 1 through 3, please.
Second.
Thank you, Brendan. These items are a very long list of proposed field trips. I don't think I've ever seen quite a long list, but they're in there, and most of them are, look like they'd be pretty interesting. Item number 2 is, again, similar to policies, a second reading of what we reviewed, what seems like 100 years ago, back in June, for high school science and elementary and high school social studies. And then item number 3 is approving 2 intern candidates for the coming school year. Any questions?
I guess the field trip to the Rialto has to be replanned.
That, yes, we'll have to see how that turns out, won't we? Yeah. Be a few changes. I think most of those are in the spring, hopefully, so maybe there'll be some time to work something out.
Mike Beelan,
Yes.
Ken Diamond,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Robert Garrison,
Yes.
Gretchen Oleg,
Yes.
Tara Porto,
Yes.
Peggy Astor,
Yes.
Amy Root.
Yes.
Great, thank you. I'm going to move on to finance. I'd like the board to approve items 1 through 10.
Second.
Brendan, any questions or comments?
And just to note, the 2 applications.
Right.
are
The 2
in- or
applications
The application
are-
for the 2 projects.
Yes, or items 1 and 2.
I think it's 1. I think it's
Just
one.
one, just one number?
Yeah, they're both together, I think.
Okay.
Yes.
And you have a gift on you.
Right. Any questions? No? I'd like to call out item number 8, where we are accepting a gift in the amount of $431.96 from the Franklin School PTO to purchase a table and a rug for a 5th grade classroom. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Let's see, no questions. Dana?
Mike Beelan,
Yes.
Ken Diamond,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Robert Garrison,
Yes.
Gretchen Oleg,
Yes.
Tara Porto,
Yes.
Peggy Astor,
Yes.
Amy Root.
Yes.
Okay. Moving on. Finance. Michael, do you have anything?
You mean
Technology.
technology?
Technology.
It all
Oh.
costs,
I had the right person in the wrong subject.
it all costs money.
That's right. There's no report this evening, because we've met last in June, but we have a meeting scheduled in September, so an update after that.
Great, thank you. I'd like the board to consider the notes for the record.
Mhm.
Okay. Do we have any unfinished business? No? Any new business? Any liaison reports? I'm just going to mention something under liaison reports. I think I brought it up to the ladies here who were discussing with us security. We should have gotten a list from Rosemary with your liaison to the PTOs of the schools. So I would like you definitely to reach out to your schools. We don't really expect everybody to go to board meetings. Some schools, that's all they have are board meetings, but we'd really like you to, or I would like you to set up a relationship with your liaisons, especially with the new security policies and so forth, you know, so they know you're there to represent them, bring back any thoughts and so forth. If you can't make a meeting, do reach out to other members and so forth and ask if somebody can make the meeting, because you'd be there to help them through some of the questions, through the changes in security policies and so forth that are being implemented in the schools. So I really hope that everybody steps forth and creates that relationship with their liaison at the schools. if you have any issues or anything, you know, please feel free to contact me. I'm sure there's some people who, if a school doesn't work for you, we could do some switching, so. So I appreciate everybody doing that. Thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to recognize the public for questions and/or comments. Seeing nobody come forth to the podium, the meeting is adjourned, 9:39.
We have to
Oh, we
move.
have to move
Second.
it. We have to second. I propose that we adjourn the meeting.
Yeah.
Second.
Second.
No
All in
problem.
favor?
Aye.
And we ended in 2.
We have no private, we have to make a motion, okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
We'll do that.